Movie Bears podcast with Brad, Jim, and Will. What have they been watching lately? They're husky, hairy, huggable homos. Movie Bears podcast.
Hello all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Bradley Harris, or Brad, as you may know me as well, and along with my fellow husky, hairy, huggable homos and friends, we love to review movies, either current or classic, sometimes both on this show. This week, we're definitely coming at you with something current, making its premiere at South by Southwest Film 2025 a few weeks ago. Death of a Unicorn has now made its way into theaters for mass access. You can go see this in theaters right now. We're excited to talk about this film. But before we can do that, let me introduce you to two of my favorite people in the whole wide frickin' universe. Jim Pugliafico is with us here in the virtual studio, i.e. 10 feet down the hall. Hopefully enough noise isolation. How you doing, sweetheart?
I'm doing great. Yeah, there's plenty of noise isolation. I can hear you twice, as a matter of fact, down the hall. So that's awesome because of audio tape delay or whatever it is. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad to be here. We're talking about another new movie that we'll get into in a little while. So I'm ready. I'm ready to roll. Let's do it.
Rock on. All right. Well, coming at us from, unfortunately, much further away, but with a move to Austin, possibly a thing for us someday. Maybe we'll be doing this in person full time. But the wonderful William Lindis is here as well. Will, how are things for you in Austin?
Things in Austin are pretty okay right now. I say that with the asterisks of it's 2025, and every time anything happens in the news, it's an absolute disastrous shit show. All of that notwithstanding, it's good to be here with y'all, especially to talk about another South by movie.
Yeah. So we don't have to talk about all the shit that's going on in 2025. There's probably plenty of current event news, political podcasts that are talking about that crap right now. We're going to dive into the world of movies and we're going to mark ourselves safe from that bullshit, at least for the next hour or so.
I just hope a magical unicorn can somehow bring my 401k back to life someday. I'll just, I've seen many unicorn movies and TV shows. They all seem to have the ability to breathe life into things. My 401k could benefit. Please, thank you.
Please, yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So the world is scary enough. So let's talk about a horror movie.
I know, right?
Yeah.
A less scary horror movie than tariffs and people getting disappeared.
Oh, God. Yeah. All right. Well, happier topics. We've got a movie to discuss. We've got, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see our magical, cosmic, moving background thematically set for this discussion around Death of a Unicorn. And I think we're going to do our normal formula with this one. So we're going to talk about Death of a Unicorn spoiler-free for about 15 minutes or so. Then we'll give you the heads up that we're going into that spoiler territory. Choose to come with us at your own peril, at your own leisure, if you haven't seen the film yet. And then we've got some plugs for you at the end of the episode. Things that we have really enjoyed, we want to put on your radar, in the hopes that you might enjoy them as well. So be sure to stick around for those. And Jim already mentioned the term I've kind of coined for people who listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., hours, days, weeks, months after we post the episodes. If you're listening via digital tape delay, feel free to use the time index to bounce around as needed. Yeah. But all that said, Jim, Will, are we ready for some movie talk?
Nothing would make me hornier.
Let me polish my horn over here and get into it.
Unicornier.
I guess we better hoof it into our main event.
gosh, yeah, we're really this one's galloping away from us.
Oh, it's so good. We were right on the tail of making the jump. And no, okay. All right, we're gonna do this. Here we go. Our discussion of Death of a Unicorn. Can I just say how much I fucking love you guys? It's so much fun to
Aw.
talk to you.
Love you.
It's a blast.
Love you too. Hopefully, we'll all love each other just as much at the end of the podcast after our reviews.
I am so curious. I know a little bit about what Jim thinks. Will, I have absolutely no idea what you think about this movie, so I'm really excited for us to dive in. But real quick, before we do, Jim, if you don't mind, set this A24 film up for us. What the heck is Death of a Unicorn? And what were your initial thoughts? Was this worth seeing it in theater, waiting for inevitable streaming, or even skipping entirely? Where'd you come down?
Yeah, so this is Death of a Unicorn, another movie that had its notable film premiere, or at least U.S. premiere, probably world premiere, at South by Southwest Film Festival this past March, since we're into April now. Yeah, this was a big one. People stood in long lines to get in to see this one. Will was, I think, one of the ones that got to see this, right? Is that Will? Is that true, Will? Did you?
No, this one
Oh.
was yeah, I had to leave this one on the shelf. I was going to go see it, but I was feeling under the weather that night.
That's right. But it was there. We got a chance to see it just this last week, though, at our home theater. So it was one of the films that premiered at South by Southwest and then shortly premiered in theaters just a couple weeks later this past week. This one is an A24 film, and I will get into the IMDb plot summary right now. A father and daughter accidentally hit and kill a unicorn while en route to a weekend retreat where his billionaire boss seeks to exploit the creature's miraculous curative properties. So we have Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega as the previously named father and daughter. They're on their way to a retreat at the posh estate of billionaire boss, where Paul Rudd is, I think, some kind of attorney. They hit and kill a juvenile unicorn. And, hilarity ensues from that. This is a dark, I would call this a comedy, dark comedy, but also a horror movie. This is a true monster horror movie as well. So a lot of different elements kind of sewn into this one. And I think that's what probably attracted A24 to a title like this. This one's written and directed by Alex Sharfman, who I don't recognize a lot of his previous credits, other than I've heard of Blow the Man Down, and he did work on The Witch a little bit. But as far as being a writer or director, I don't see a ton of credits that I recognize. So kind of a new face, I think, on the filmmaker scene. But this one also stars, I mentioned Paul Rudd, who was in a couple of big movies at South by this year and was in attendance for those movies. So Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega, who seems like she's another one that's in everything everywhere these days. We've got Téa Leoni. Good to see her back in here. Richard E. Grant, Will Poulter, Jessica Hayes, a lot of other names. So, yeah, we went to see this one and wasn't sure what to expect. The trailer definitely gives comedy vibes, but I was surprised at the horror elements in this one, to be honest. I had mixed feelings about this film. I think after thinking about it, it's one of those films where you just want to kind of go along for the ride and see where it takes you. It's not something you're going to think deeply about. It does kind of swing back and forth wildly between comedy and horror, which could give a little whiplash sometimes if it's not deftly handled, like some movies. And I'm not sure this one like hit the tone right or the tones right 100% of the time. But I will say, I think I like this movie. I think I would have loved this movie if it was more of a straight up horror movie. I think I think maybe the comedy or the writing of the comedy just kind of took away from what I thought were really fantastic horror elements that were sewn into this one. I will say the unicorn or I don't want to give too much away. I'll just say that the unicorn horror was unique, I thought, and well done. Way more special effects than I expected to be in this kind of a movie. And I thought, for the most part, I thought they were all pretty convincing and convincing enough for kind of a fantastical horror movie. So, yeah, I think I like this one. I think this one's worth seeing if you want to just kind of go to the movies, grab some popcorn. I think it is an R-rated film. I'm not exactly sure, but it may be R-rated. Grab some popcorn, kind of turn off your brain, and let this one kind of take you on a bit of a ride. Be prepared to be frightened, like truly scared, and maybe a few laughs along the way too. So yeah, I think this one's worth seeing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for weighing in with your initial thoughts, babe. Always great to hear what you think, especially since we allow ourselves like 2 sentences in the car on the way home, and then it's like, no, we got to save it for the podcast. I've been a very patient person waiting to hear, and I want to hear more, but I want to hear from Will Lindis as well. Will, I know, like a lot of us, you're a big A24 junkie. Did this one fit the docket for you? Was this a big win? Was this a swing and a miss? How did it land for you?
Yeah, so this is one I've been looking forward to for a while, just because it's got one of the most fun trailers to come out, the last year or so. And this trailer does a pretty good job of giving you everything you need to know about the movie, while also not like kind of spoiling some of the big stuff. So I think it's a safe trailer to go into. That was my expectation going in, and I would say kind of leaving the film. I ended up sort of liking the film. I don't know that I loved it, but I liked it. And let's talk a little bit about why that is. So this film falls in a weird category where it's, we've talked about it as like a blend of horror and comedy. It's also got a blend of fantasy in there too. So when you put those 3 together, there's a Venn diagram where there's going to be whatever overlap is going to be and how much of that is going to go for each part of which circle. And I don't know that the chemicals were 100% there to make the blend that this needed to be. There were individual elements that worked really well. I love this cast. I think, of course, it's, Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega are a pretty easy pick for just like 2 people who are on top of their game right now, just starring and everything. But just some of the other performances, Anthony Kerrigan, who I last saw playing NoHo Hank in Barry. I loved seeing him in this. Jessica Hines, who you'll remember from like Shaun of the Dead and Spaced, those are, seeing her show up in this was also great. In fact, I think the supporting cast, I feel like they had more to chew on than even the main cast did, who had to sort of play, for being a funny guy. Paul Rudd didn't get to do as much funny stuff in this. He had to play, I don't want to say the straight man, but he had to play kind of the, a little bit more of a muted role than normal. I do agree that it's at its best when it's playing into the horror elements. I think the comedy elements are needed because of the premise. I think if this played itself too straight, the premise would have fallen out from beneath it. So it needed to be a horror comedy. But I do think that the dial needed to be turned a little bit more towards the horror, and the comedy needed to be punched up a little bit more. It's a hard blend to do. I do think that they have something really, really compelling here. The premise itself, you don't see anywhere. Like it's amazing to see this exact type of story come into play, where it's, people fighting unicorns. Like that's fucking insane. Like, and I'm glad we got that. Yeah, it just feels like, if this went into the easy bake oven, it maybe came out about a minute too early. Needed just a little bit more to really sing for me. That said, I think it's fun, and I do think it's worth a watch.
All right. Will, thank you as well for giving us some of your initial thinking on this one. Listening to both of you talk about this film, I agree with a lot of what y'all have to say. I think the most important thing for me is just the tone of the film. Jim, you had made a comment. Is it a comedy? Is it a horror movie? Is it kind of both? I feel like it leans in at different times, but never enough or well enough to like blend them together. We've seen a lot of other like dark horror comedies, like You're Next, for instance, right? And it almost feels like this film was kind of going for that vibe, and at least for me, it kind of missed. So it feels tonally a little all over the place. As much as I love our Madam Secretary Téa Leoni, a little bit of Téa Leoni goes a long way for me. And at one point, just the character, not Téa Leoni herself in this sense, but the character in this movie, just became a lot, and it started tuning me out from the film. But she does such a great job of playing that character. I think it's a testament to her acting skills, that I'm just like, ooh, bad person. I don't want to hear from that person anymore. And if she were the only one, that'd be great. But the whole fucking family outside of Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega, I didn't like any of them. And I think that's the point, right? So they all did a great job. But I think, I don't know, if this had been more of a pure horror movie, I think this would have worked a lot better for me. As it is, the comedic elements, they were fine, I guess. Y'all know I'm weird with comedy anyway, so I'm not maybe the best judge of, comedy in a film, but it just didn't work that well. I will say that there are some very resonant themes in this movie outside of accidentally killing a unicorn and, craziness ensues. Deeper, like, mysteries of the universe, questions about life, things that I really connected with here. So while I'd say the movie as a whole was pretty middling, I found some incredible fucking things that I latched onto. That you'll probably look at me like I'm crazy, but I can't wait to talk about with y'all. And I'm curious if any of you out there in listener land maybe connect with this a little bit too. So more on that to come. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for something fun to go see in theaters right now that isn't a Minecraft movie, I think this is a good one to check out. But otherwise, you could probably wait for streaming.
Nice. And this is no review of a Minecraft movie, which I had not seen, but Brad has. Brad, would you say that, like, if only the comedy in this were as good as a Minecraft movie, maybe you would have liked it more?
You know what? You're gonna laugh.
I know I'm laughing, but it's probably true.
I laughed my ass off in the Minecraft movie, and it may be coming up later. Who knows? But the comedy in that worked way better. But that movie wasn't trying to also be a horror movie, so it could do other things, right? I think this one was maybe constrained.
Yeah.
So.
Unlike the two of you, I didn't dig Paul Rudd in this film. I thought the Paul Ruddness of Paul Rudd was coming through so much that, like, and you're right, I think his character was like, had his hands tied behind his back, right? For such a talented actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that hurt. I think that really hurt the character or something. I almost would have liked to have seen a much lesser well-known actor maybe play that role. I thought Jenna Ortega was fine. And, the rest of the cast, I'm not the biggest Will Poulter fan, especially in this role. He played a really kind of gonzo rich kid brat grown up. But yeah, like I said, I really, Brad, you mentioned the fantastical, mystical elements, kind of, that are usually linked to unicorns, right? And such a fantastical, uh, mythical question mark creature, um, that was explored a little bit very early in the movie. I almost wish they had done and they kind of revisited it later, but I wish they had done even a little bit more with that aspect of it, right? Like, what, that these are revered as mystical creatures, and not just where most of the movie, the family in this, and it says it right here in the thing, that was the family was attempting to kind of exploit these creatures that lived near their compound, and yeah, I don't know. I guess the best thing to come out of this movie for me was, like I said, the horror stuff. I thought really worked well, because, like you said, you don't see this kind of horror that often, right? That works really well, where you have this exploited creature who's kind of getting payback, getting revenge in the film, and I love that aspect to it. But I went after the film, and I looked up the unicorn tapestries. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, ooh, that's really interesting. Like, and I knew it was a real thing because I had seen images before, but I really hadn't learned much about it. So we went home, and I think we watched like a 10-minute video of, like, examining the tapestry and what's possibly going on in each tapestry, like, as a story of the unicorn. And that was really cool. So, hey, the movie turned me on to more of the mythology of unicorns, and that's cool.
Yeah, you mentioned the tapestries. It's so funny. I turned to Jim, as we're seeing those tapestries, and I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. And he's like, what is he so excited about? Why is he interrupting my movie? And I'm like, those are the tapestries from the opening, like, cinematic thing of The Last Unicorn animated movie
Yeah,
from the 80s. And so when we got home, we actually pulled the movie up and watched the first 2 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah, the animators for Rankin Bass animated those tapestries and, like, made them move, and they changed them a little bit to be less,
yeah.
killy than the real ones. But it was pretty cool watching that video all about the real history of those tapestries.
Yeah, between Last Unicorn and watching Unico.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, would be a fun follow-up from this. Yeah. So the Paul Rudd issue with this one is that Paul Rudd works best in comedies when he's allowed to be Celery Man, which is just a kind of that's one of my favorite sketches from Tim and Eric that he's in, and it's just weird, it's bizarre, and so we've seen him in that really recently in Friendship, which is also a A24 film coming out pretty soon, and he gets to do a little bit more of the same stuff, like you get to see in, like, I Love You Man, or gosh, the one where he goes to I forget what that one's called. But anyways, he gets to kind of act a little goofy in those. Whereas the Paul Rudd that I enjoy less, this one reminds me of Ghostbusters Paul Rudd, which is a sort of a nothing burger Paul Rudd. And that's frustrating because he doesn't get a chance to really kind of play into his strengths. But Jenna Ortega, I mean, she's a star for a reason. I mean, she carries this movie on her back, like, so darn good at what she has to do here, being the central focus character who has to buy into the stupidity of what's happening, has to buy into the fantasy of what's happening, has to buy into the understanding just how douchey kind of the main family is that they're staying with. And I think all of that comes across very believably. So I really like Jenna Ortega in this.
Yeah, I super agree. And she's been on a streak, right? She's been in the newer Scream movies. She's been on the Wednesday show on Netflix. She's got a lot of different projects going on. I think for me, she was probably the strongest part of this film. So Jenna Ortega is definitely giving us some goodness to enjoy here. I feel like there's a lot more we could talk about, though. But speaking of having our arms pinned behind our Paul Rudd back, how do y'all feel about making that jump into spoiler territory?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, spoilers for Death of a Unicorn are officially fair game in just a few seconds when I stop awkwardly rambling to give you time to hit pause or skip ahead in the time index if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. But if you're still listening at this point, we assume you're okay with spoilers, even if you haven't seen the film. Where do y'all want to start with this one?
My absolute favorite part, which is Erasure's always started playing, and then the unicorn started going across the screen, kind of jumping from platform to platform. Oh, gosh, I'm gonna re-download Robot Unicorn Attack right now.
Jumping
my gosh.
from cliff to cliff or whatever it is. Yeah.
Don't forget that, and then the dolphins behind it with the rainbows, and oh my god, I probably put like 300 hours into that game. Will, I loved it so much. Oh my
gosh, yeah.
It's
another one to add to the unicorn influence bank.
Pantheon of unicorn cultural references. Yeah. I got to start at the beginning. I was a little put off. Look, any movie that shows like severe animal peril or animal cruelty or violence against animals, like I think kind of sets me off on kind of a wrong foot. Now, granted, the beginning of this movie is an accident, right? The unicorn runs out in front of them. They're in a car, and it gets struck by the car, and it's suffering. But then the movie seems to take a turn where, okay, the unicorn is suffering, and the dad takes action to kind of quote unquote put it out of its misery, right, and end its suffering. But it's just so brutal, and it just seemed excessively egregious. Like, it was very weird to me. Like, he kept beating that thing, and the purple blood is splattering everywhere. And I don't know, that set me off on the wrong foot. Like, why is this movie doing that? What are they trying to show? Like, the character wasn't particularly an asshole in that way. It seemed to be also out of character for the character to go that crazy on it. But yeah, I was kind of set back, I think, by that scene at the beginning. And then of course we know that the unicorn still isn't dead, and comes back to life only to be killed again. Right? Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe not.
That's the point, right? Is like the premise of this, we're in spoilers, is the unicorn has the ability to come back from the dead. So I think that it's very easy to, if you don't know, like, how many hits does it take to kill a unicorn? Like, if you don't we don't know that yet, that it hadn't been killed. You know what I'm talking about in the fiction, right? How many hits does it take to do that? I think if you underplay that initial scene, then when it comes back to life in the car, it's just like, oh, okay, he didn't kill it, as opposed to just like, wait a minute, he wailed on that thing. Like, how is something going on? Is it healing? Is it tougher than we were expecting? So I think that's really what they were going for, is really setting up just how tough this like regeneration is, and sort of letting it play out through each of those like kill scenes.
Yeah, I have to say, I have a lot of trouble too seeing animals in pain, even if they're fake. I've been playing a lot of the Horizon games, Last of Us, Kingdom Come, Deliverance 2. I can't even hunt animals in those games, you guys. Like, even hurting like animals made of pixels is really difficult for me to like, because they program them to be realistic. They make pain noises, and they flail around until they die. And so I had a really hard time with that initial scene too. And I think the contrast of Paul Rudd suddenly bashing the shit out of the unicorn in the head, I think was meant to like pull us away from the really beautiful moment that was happening. And I think I see what they were trying to do. It was just, I don't know, it was weird and it didn't work for me. But the horn glows as this unicorn is dying, and as its cat eye, which, by the way, really cool touch, looked at Jenna Ortega's character, Ridley. Ridley reaches out and touches the horn, and all of a sudden she's like connected to the universe. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later, but it's this very beautiful scene where she's like, you know, seeing nebula and she's going through space and she feels like the unicorn is connecting with her, but she's in a trance or something from the Elliot Paul Rudd character's perspective. I think he's trying to save her. So maybe that's why he's so violent, but I don't know. It was just really dissonant, and it made the animal cruelty thing even harder for me. And then to see like rich people like prancing and laughing and dancing over the death of like supposedly of this poor animal, right, for their benefit. It's probably a really good thing, but it hit way too close to home about what's happening in the United States right now with certain group of people and how they look at and treat others. So maybe really uncomfortable, which was probably the point, you know. But I could totally see a DJT standing over a unicorn that can, you know, cure anything and being like, how do we make as much money off this as we can? And it makes my heart sick.
I mean, that's a big part of, you know, a big part of pharma as an industry right now. And I say that because there are some fantastic people working in pharmaceutical studies and research who are discovering amazing things, and they are doing it for the good of people. But then, you know, it then gets kind of filtered into a system that's not always kind to people with less money. And I think that's really where this film hung a lot of its hat. You know, it really wanted to play into the exploitation angle and what that exploitation means. Not just the exploitation of the resource, because the resource in this case was the unicorn horn and how it heals any disease, any of that. But also how that exploitation was, I mean, they were offering it up for, you know, to the richest of their friends. That was never going to make it to market for as a cure for, you know, the average Joe Schmo with, you know, any random disease or illness. And so I think that's one of the things that both worked and didn't work about this film, in that, like, I think it knew what it was wanting to say. At the same time, I think those angles are the angles that really make the film kind of deflate a little bit when we're trying to get to some more of the more, I don't know, gut punchy stuff that happens. Like, again, like we mentioned, the horror. I think the satirical comedy needed to be there. I do think it needed to be there. I think that's the part that just, it was not fully fleshed around. And so the rich characters in this felt at times both more exaggerated and at times more toothless than they might be in real life. And those two things didn't always jive for me.
Yeah. Like they were kind of clueless, right? As far as like they didn't put any. It's almost like they were totally drunk on their power, like the whole time. Like they were just like they seemed like they were high the whole time. Of course, one of them was in the movie.
Yeah. Well, they both were and they weren't. That's, I think, the issue I had is like there were times where they would make very lucid, rational decisions about what was going on, and then times where they were just sort of in la la land about the threats. I think that if you're going to play satire, I think you have to lean, I know we said less comedy, I think you have to lean more into those comedic parts and make them honestly more clueless and a little bit more evil and a little bit more unlikable, and then ramp up the horror elements on the other side of things. As it was, I don't know that it always read.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, as more of a like a horror movie aficionado and expert, I consider you to be, honestly. But the pacing of this film as a horror film seemed a little bit back-ended to me. Like a lot of the cooler stuff happens like in the last, I don't know, 40, 45 minutes of the film, in terms of like the unicorns, becoming the big threat that they did in the movie. A lot of I just thought that the movie languished quite a bit, kind of at the front end, like almost the whole first half was like too much of the rich family. And, I think it was I probably could have used a little bit more of the unicorn stuff like early on in the movie, other than the dead, the dead young unicorn.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
what do
from
you
a
think
horror
about typical, decent horror movie pacing in terms of spacing out its goodies?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a good horror movie, whether it be a straight horror, a atmospheric horror, slow burn, a schlocky slasher, all of which can be great when done with deft hands. It's all about, it's about pacing out the moments of tension, right? And so one of the things that this film does struggle with a little bit is it does have kind of like that end of first act issue. It sets things up right away, and then it sort of languishes in the middle, where it just sort of says, well, what do these people do to explore the resource? But we don't get a lot of threat built in there.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen, and again, it's not my job to rewrite the film, but I would have loved to have seen some of that spaced out a little bit more. You can have, you know, I need you to, go see if there's any more, and have them going off in the woods, and have a scene where maybe two disposable trackers like get killed, like, kind of early in the second act, maybe off, not off screen, but like unknown to the rest of the cast, but you can build some of that tension and that threat coming up. I saw this at Alamo Drafthouse, and one of the things that happens at Alamo Drafthouse is the waiters come by with 45 minutes left in the movie, and they drop off your bill. And both this movie and Hell of a Summer, which I also saw, had the same issue where when they dropped off the thing, I was like, oh, already? Like, the film hasn't really gotten going yet. It doesn't feel like it's sort of like cascading towards, like, its climax. And so I think that speaks exactly to what you're talking about. There's something that was missing sort of in bridging those earlier scenes, earlier acts, that just needed something that punched more. Make it funnier, make it scarier, make it more dramatic, make it something, but something to keep us really engaged until like the goring happens.
Yeah. It's like that piece of toast that doesn't have butter on one side. Like, you know what I mean? Like it needed butter, like kind of spread all around it. But yeah, once it did get going, as I said, I was fully on board. I thought there were some legit like scares in this film from fucking unicorns. They did kind of what, like make the unicorns bigger and badder and, fiercer and meaner as the movie went on, which I thought was cool. But toward the almost to the end of the movie, they were a legit threat. Like you were afraid of what was going to happen in that house or around that house. They were stalking these people inside their mansion, like these two horsey, evil horsey with horns looking creatures, that I thought was pretty awesome. But as monsters go, I thought that was very effective.
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job of mixing some of the, I guess, the effects of the monster versions of the unicorns with the practical stuff. Like, for instance, when they try to crash through doors or windows. One of the things I really admired about this movie is sometimes you can tell like how fake that is, right? Like if you're watching, I don't know, a sci-fi channel horror movie or something, and a evil thing like pushes its arm through a door, like it looks really fake. But this movie actually did a really good job with the CGI, or whether it was a practical thing they shoved through there, I don't know. But it actually made me feel like the unicorns were an actual threat. They weren't just a CGI thing that was on the screen. I did give the movie some grace, I guess. I don't know what the budget for this film was, but most of the unicorn action happens at night. And so it's like, well, it's at night, so they don't have to animate as much and da 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 da. And, I get it. That's fine. I guess we're not going to see them in the daytime. It'd be too much money. But then we saw them in the daytime in 2 different scenes. At the end, where one, unicorns, we're in spoilers, bring Paul Rudd back to life. Yay! Again, please do that to my 401k. But then we also see them in this neat scene at the end of the movie where Elliot and Ridley have been arrested after the evil family is all dead. They're in the cop car heading for the slammer, and the family of unicorns, who are white now because they're friendly and beautiful and not enraged, run up and knock the police car off the railing, right? So that Ridley and Elliot can ostensibly escape. It was cool to see the unicorns in the daytime too. I think they look fucking great. So, props to the movie makers. That's hard to do in daylight with CGI for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think it looked really good for what they had. I don't know what the budget was, but I can tell you it all went into the unicorns, and I'm glad for it. And by the way, I just for the record want to say that, look, I may or may not have lost a lot of money this week in the falling stock market 401k thing, but I would never sacrifice a unicorn and grind down its horn to sprinkle over my investments to make them grow better. I would never do that, just for the record.
Well, you're a
I would love that unicorn.
Than
I would love that unicorn.
a lot of people are.
Even if I were poor. Even if I were poor.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, did y'all have anything else you wanted to talk about before I dig in a little on something?
Go for it.
Good. Okay.
Go for it.
So I know I've mentioned on the show before that I've struggled a lot with depression and anxiety. And one of the ways I found in the last year that has helped tremendously with those is clinically administered ketamine therapy. Basically, you take a big enough dose of ketamine that you dissociate, you see psychedelics. Growing up as a farm boy in Michigan, I never thought psychedelics would be something I'd ever try or turn to. But my psychiatrist turned me onto it. Anyway, it's helped a ton. The reason I'm bringing it up is when Ridley reaches out and touches the unicorn's horn for the first time, she has this like cosmic like vision. She's like flying through nebula and, planets and the universe. And she kind of reaches like the heart of creation, it seems like. And she tells Paul Rudd later in the movie that when she was in that place, that she could like feel him and that she could like feel her mom, right? Someone who's passed away, also someone who's alive. Sounds like craziness to Paul Rudd, but then he gets that same experience when he's brought to life again at the end of the movie. He sees that. Also, the Shep character played by Will Poulter, I think, ground up the horn and was able to see it to some extent. But the reason I'm bringing it up is I feel like, I don't know, maybe there's some truth to this whole idea of like a collective consciousness or, quantum entanglement of thought energy. There's a lot of science studies right now going on about that. But it's just interesting to me. I keep seeing examples of this come up in movies and TV shows and stories throughout history. And I just wonder, like, is there maybe some like deeper layer to the universe that the unicorns and the cavemen and other societies have connected through, whether it's through psychedelics or meditation or what. But the sheer fact that it shows up so often in our media just has me really wondering about that. It was cool that this movie brought that up. Also, if I were to point someone who's like, what's ketamine therapy like for you? I'd be like, here, go watch this part of the movie. That's my cosmic cocoon. That's where I do my thinking.
I've listened to you try to, I haven't done this form of therapy before. And so I ask you, when you've done it, like, what was it like? What did you see? Like, what did you feel? And you've tried your best to explain something that is, almost unexplainable, right? You kind of have to feel it. But when this scene happened in the movie, I instantly recognized it as something that you were trying to explain to me, or show me in pictures or whatever. And so I'm like, I knew you would have a reaction to it. I do wish the movie had kind of explored it even a little bit more. But you got to wonder where that comes from in the writing of this movie. Like, that's a good question. You may want to reach out to the filmmakers and say, hey, just for the record, where did the idea come from for the feeling and the visuals of that scene? You might be surprised what comes back. Maybe they'll say, oh yeah, I go to clinically administered ketamine therapy in Tucson, and who knows? I don't know, but it was super interesting, and something I said, wow, it's almost like that's what Brad is explaining. I get it now. Yeah, you know what I mean when you could see it kind of fictionalized in a movie.
It's almost like if Inside Out 2 gave me a visual or something I can point to for people to understand really bad anxiety attacks, right? Now I can point to this movie around like what it's like to dissociate and like ruminate in the universe, Yeah. It's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
And that's something that you can't usually get with horror films, and you can't usually get with comedy, and it's why the dark fantasy elements make this film especially unique. Because the closest you get with comedy would be something like a stoner comedy or something like that, which can give you some of those similar vibes, but usually they're playing for the humor of it.
Yeah. I'll just say this. I did not expect this movie to make me feel as seen as it did and to make me like openly weep during those scenes.
During a dead unicorn scene.
I know, right? And the unicorn's coming back to life and being amazing. So, Will, you mentioned Unico earlier. Of course, The Last Unicorn. There are a lot of other cool unicorn related media out there, and I feel like I want to devour them all now. I need to make like a master list of unicorn stuff. I even wore my unicorn slippers this morning.
Legend.
That's right. Yes. Yeah,
I definitely know there's more. They're just not coming to mind right now.
I'm sure there's
other one that comes to mind is Unicorn Wars, but that's a different animal entirely.
Different tone altogether. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. In any event, really cool that we got to see this film. Bummer we didn't get to see it at South by Southwest. It was one of those things where the Platinum Pass folks got to get passes 2 days ahead of normal pass folks like us. And it's great to attend that festival as press. I do think that system made it a little harder to see some of these movies and give them coverage ahead of their releases. But hopefully fair criticism is a good thing. We'll see how things shake out with their system next year. A lot is changing, but I'm really glad we did get to catch up with this one in theaters and finally see why people were raving about this film at South by Southwest. So very cool that it premiered there. Great that we can see it in theaters. Sounds like this might, be a film. It might be down your alley if you like unicorns, you like horror, you like cosmic connection stuff. Might be good for you. But Jim, well, any other thoughts before we move on to some plugs?
No, let's plug it up.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we got it.
Well, we would end the show, but plugs still have to happen.
But plugs.
We always forget about them.
Also, hi to my boss who recently found out about the podcast and listened.
And about plugs.
I warned him about the language and all that stuff, and he was totally cool with it. So hopefully it's all good. But
why do you flag that after saying the name of the segment, Brad?
Yeah, it's our plug section.
We're gonna move on, but
plugs.
Plugs are happening.
I feel like when you're talking about ending the show, but plugs are still a thing. You kind of got to start at the top, right? Explain things to the bottom. Make sure everyone.
This is definitely at the bottom.
It's getting painful. Yeah, exactly. All right.
I'm glad that you said that with some flair.
This is the part of the show where we bring up some things that we have recently discovered that we love, that we want to let other people know about, put on your radar, whatever metaphor analogy you want to use, things that we want to spotlight. So let's start with Will. Will, what is your butt plug for this week?
Yeah, so mine is a film I saw back in September at a festival. It came out early March in theaters and is now available on streaming in that like rental price stage. It's not free on streaming anywhere, but you can rent it. It is I'm going to call it a horror film, but because that's what it's classified as, but with an asterisk, called The Rule of Ginny Pin. This movie stars John Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush and George Hanair. And they are three characters who live at an old person's like a retirement community. And the John Lithgow character begins to terrorize the Jeffrey Rush character and everyone else with this little baby doll on his hand, and just bullying them and forcing them to just do stuff that is just not appropriate and not comfortable. And it's a look at what happens when someone wields power over others, even in a situation where they're all ostensibly equals. They're all patients at this community, but one of them wields all the power over the others. It's pretty terrific and pretty terrifying. And of course, it's got John Lithgow and Jeffrey Rush in it, who are both very, very good. It's called The Rule of Ginny Pin, and it's a weird movie, but it's a damn good one.
Awesome. I had heard about this title, but I don't know much about it. And the cast sounds great. Lithgow is amazing. Sounds like one I would definitely want to look into, since it's available for rental.
There you go.
Yeah, Ginny Pin. And Ginny Pin is the name of the baby doll that he has on his hand. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
The further villainization of dolls. Here we go. Thanks, Annabelle.
The trailer for Megan 2.0 did come out.
Oh god,
that's true.
Yeah,
I saw a teaser. I didn't see a trailer.
I meant to say teaser. Yeah. I mean, it's still technically a trailer. It's just the teaser trailer rather than
it's called a teaser
trailer 1, 2, or 3. Yes. All right. Will, thank you so much for putting that on folks' to-do lists. Jim, how about you? What's your butt plug this week?
Oh, so I was on a business trip to the Northeast last week for a few days, and at night in a hotel, it's kind of cool. It's rainy. I'm like, I think I want to go see a movie, but everything that was out in theaters in that area was either stuff we'd seen, stuff I didn't really care to see, or stuff that I kind of wanted to see, but it's stuff we would see together. And in that case, I wouldn't go see it on my own. So we could, save it basically for later. But then there was this movie I saw, it's like called The Luckiest Man in America, playing at one of the theaters there. And I'm like, that looks interesting. And it's got Paul Walter Hauser in it, which I'm kind of a fan of his. And we saw him, was it last year at South by? He was in, I forget what it was last year that he was in. That we saw, but he was right there on the stage. I forget what it was all about. Anyway, he was in it, and I don't know if you've heard of this film. It's Will, you said your film was a kind of a weird film. This is a weird film too, but I suspect it's in a totally different genre. It's not a horror film. This is a kind of a fictionalization, I guess you'd say, of a true story. It's May in 1984. An unemployed ice cream truck driver / dreamer steps onto the game show Press Your Luck. I don't know if you guys remember the game show Press Your Luck, where the lights would go around a board and you have to hit the button and try to avoid the whammy, right? The big whammy. But this guy goes on a winning streak and wins like the most money. At that time, it was like the most winnings on any game show ever. And I don't want to spoil anything, but it is a true story. he won like over $100,000 at the time, like in 1984, and that was crazy. And he was trying to, he was estranged from his wife and his daughter, and it was one of these stories like, he wanted to be back in their lives, and the money was going to make things better. This is just a weird little movie. We've seen game show type movies before. There was a movie called Quiz Show. I don't know if you remember that one. I think it was, I don't know if it was John Turturro was in that. I forget who it was, but that was another good one. This one, like I said, had Paul Walter Hauser as the main guy, Michael Lawson. This one had we talked about people who are in everything these days. Walton Goggins was in this one as the game show host. He was in Fallout. He's in the new White Lotus season 3 that everybody's talking about now. David Strathairn, we've seen him in a lot of stuff before. Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones is in this for some random reason, and Johnny Knoxville is in this. It's he has a small part in it. It's a weird cast. It's a weird film. It's definitely off kilter the whole time. I really liked it. I enjoyed the hell out of this film. It's called The Luckiest Man in America. I saw it in theaters. I don't know. This is a movie where I'm surprised it was in theaters because it seems like it's perfect for like streaming, right? The luckiest man in America, so and so game show winner. What was the story behind this man? But yeah, I liked it. It's if you get a chance to see it, see it. If you don't, because I don't think it's going to be in theaters long. I think it's going to show up on streaming somewhere.
I'm very much looking forward to seeing this one. The story of Michael Larson's 1984 Press Your Luck run is like one of my like you have like a weird piece of like knowledge or lore that you just like
from your younger self. Yeah,
from not even from my younger self, from my all the time self. And the reason I say that is that story is fascinating to me. And there have been countless, there was like in the 90s, there was like I want to say BBC, but I could be wrong. Like a documentary that came out about it that's you can find on YouTube. And then recently they did a sort of a, where are they now type thing that's also like I saw recently on YouTube. So I've watched probably like 4 or 5 different like not retellings, but like, documentary tellings of this Michael Larson run. I've not seen a fictionalized version of it. So this is really fascinating to me. Yeah, I loved to watch Press Your Luck as a kid, but as an adult, I'm fascinated with how Michael Larson did press his luck. Let's say that. So yeah, this is definitely on my radar.
Let's I can't wait till you see it. I'm not going to say any more, Will, but when you see it, let me know, and I would love to talk about it with you to see if it scratches your itch.
For sure.
All right. I also used to love watching Press Your Luck. I'll have to track this movie down too. It sounds really fun, and of course, Paul Walter Hauser is super duper cute, so that always helps.
He is cute. And he's a good actor, and I think he was perfect for this role. Just kind of his mannerism and. We've seen him play. He's kind of a character actor, right? So and that's exactly what we get here. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. All right. I guess I'll close things out at the bottom of this segment here with my butt plug.
What?
I'm going to plug a movie I did not expect to plug. I'm going to plug a movie that I saw because it was just a thing that some friends were seeing, and it was about a thing that I enjoy. It looked utterly stupid from the trailers, but I was like, you know what? I'll see it anyway and see what happens. And that is a Minecraft movie. It was really good. Very unexpectedly so. Jason Momoa and Jack Black was the team up I did not know I needed. They were really, really fun together. I love Danielle Brooks. We saw her in Orange is the New Black. She plays the third adult character in this. The kids, not so much.
Kid actors.
Yeah. But also Jennifer Coolidge was in this. Coming off her 2-season stint on the White Lotus. I didn't know she was going to be in this. Someone said she was in the trailer. I think the trailer just shut my brain so much down that I didn't even process she was in the film. So when she showed up, I had the biggest fucking grin on my face. I thought this movie was going to be terrible. I thought it was going to be awful. It is such a huge love letter to Minecraft and the community of players of all ages who play this game. I also appreciate that the movie provides a nice, easy on ramp for parents or people who don't know Minecraft, who only know, oh, it's, block characters. It helps them to kind of understand the game and the mechanics of things and why it's fun. And what's really, really cool is walking out of this movie. I went to see it with a couple of friends who are also gamers. And there was like a 7-year-old kid walking with his dad. And he was like, Dad, now do you understand why I like to play Minecraft so much? Just all the crazy fun stuff you can do. And his dad said, yeah, how do I play with you? I want to play this. I want to explore this with you. And that 7-year-old kid, guys, lit up like a fucking Christmas tree. He was so happy. So the fact that this movie, obviously it's not going to do that for every parent, right? They've got their box wine and their silo on, streaming platforms. But the fact that it's bringing kids and adults together, or bringing even new adults to the world of Minecraft is phenomenal. And I'll never fucking forget Aquaman and Tenacious D in a movie together. It was pretty fucking rad. So I'm glad I ended up seeing this.
Well, good. I'm glad that it's nice when a movie can scratch the itch that you didn't know you need itched.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you said like going in, you said the trailers looked god awful, and they did. And I think that's what kept me away from the movie, really, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
That plus I don't know the property that well. I'm like the guy at the I'm the person that you described at the beginning of your pitch for the movie. It said like all I know is it has blocks and people dig and they build stuff, and that's kind of all I know. And so I know there's going to be references in the movie and stuff that might not land with me exactly the way they land with somebody like you who's played the game. But sometimes films like this can be like, you expected it to be silly and goofy, right? But in a bad way, maybe. But like once you get on its wavelength, that silly and goofy wavelength, Jack Black, blah blah, then you're on a ride, right? And I think that's probably maybe what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so, definitely. And I do think it's unfortunate that the trailers were so awful, because I think they're keeping people, even like you, Jim, away from seeing what is a really funny and fun film. And I would say you don't, because the movie does such a good job of setting Minecraft up, you don't need to know the conceits. You don't need to have all that to understand and to laugh. And so if you ever decide you want to give it a chance, I would totally see it again. I actually saw it in 3D, and it was probably one of the best 3D things I've seen in a really long time. Screw Avatar, sorry. It made really good use of the medium as well, so that was neat. But yeah, Minecraft, put it on your radar. All right, well, I think that brings us to an actual close for this episode. Jim, well, as always, thank you for some delightfully scintillating conversation around something we love, that of course being movies. This is my favorite part of the week. Aside from the weekend, we get to hang out and chat. And well, I know we don't get to see you in person that often, but always so great to see you, through a rectangle.
Yeah,
when we
I'm in a box here,
right? But we put ourselves in those boxes, I guess, for good. In any event, thank you to everyone who, just continues to tune in year after year. Thank you to those who are new, maybe tuning in for the first time. This show is something that we've loved doing forever. We love doing it together. We love doing it for you. So if you have any thoughts on Death of a Unicorn, any of our butt plugs, or anything else from the last 527 episodes that came before this one, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, on X at MB Podcast. And let's tell you a little bit about how you can connect with us individually between now and our next episode. Jim Puliafka, where can folks find and connect with you online?
You can find me, of course. I've got a profile on Letterboxd where I rate and sometimes review movies that I've seen, so you can see what I've been watching. And my frequency of movie watching has definitely ramped down since coming off of South by, where we saw sometimes 3, sometimes 4 movies a day. But I'm still out there looking for good movies, as I talked about with, the Luckiest Man in America film. I'm still out there looking for great films to watch. We're watching some great TV as well. So you can find me on there, and you can also find me on my Facebook profile, Jim Pugliafico.
All right. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Will, how about for you? How can folks connect?
I'm also on Letterboxd. Look for the Movie Bear there. I've got reviews for everything going back. Oh my god, like 12, 13 years. Oh my god, it feels like I just got on it. But yeah, check me out there on Letterboxd, and then on Facebook, just look for William Lindis. I'm on other platforms as well, but those are the 2 biggies.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Will. Folks, you can find me on Facebook. Just look for Bradley Harris, and you'll see me wearing a hot pink pair of glasses. You'll know you got the right guy because he's got a beard, and it's getting really gray. But that's okay. I'm all right with that. Hashtag daddy status. Hashtag own it. Do we hashtag verbally anymore? Is that like a 5-year ago thing? I don't know.
Do you want to do it? Do it.
Whatever, right? Hashtag follow my bliss. You can also find me on Letterboxd, where I also have been rating every film I've seen the last few years. Thanks in perpetuity to William Lindis for turning me on to that. And yeah, feel free to shoot me a friend request, say hi, and let's talk movies. We're going to be coming back at you all next episode, next week, relative to today's date, Tuesday, April the 8th, 2025, with a review of another film coming out of South by Southwest Film 2025, and that is Drop, the movie that tries to make you afraid of airdrop technology, where someone can send you pictures if they're within a certain range of you. It's crazy. It's zany. It could be good. It could be terrible. Who knows? Hopefully you'll find out when you go see it this weekend, and then connect with us next week when we chat about that film.
So drop in.
Ooh,
I
like that a lot. That's so good. Anyway,
My pun game is nowhere near what you guys are.
Way to bring it back, though. That's the important part, right?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next time. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.